Listen. Did you hear that? In the elegant neighborhood of La Jolla, the golden light of the afternoon sun filtered through the silk curtains of the Herrera mansion. But for Sofia Ramirez, 28 years old, that golden light only illuminated her deepest humiliation. Her softly green eyes, now clouded with tears of rage, gazed at the pieces of glass scattered across the marble floor. The Talavera vase she had been cleaning had slipped from her trembling hands when she heard the conversation behind the study door. "That girl, the one who cleans here, don't you think she's taking too many liberties?" Mrs. Herrera had said with disdain. "Yesterday, I saw her talking to my grandson as if she were family. Someone needs to remind her of her place." Sofia's heart beat like a drum as she remembered every word. She had spent 3 years working in that house, 3 years being invisible, 3 years lovingly caring for every corner of that home that would never be hers. Her fair skin had flushed with shame, and her brown hair fell over her face like a protective curtain. But what hurt her the most were not Mrs. Herrera's words, but his silence. Diego Herrera, 42 years old, had been present during that conversation. His eyes, as blue as the skies of Southern California, which she had so often imagined looking at her with tenderness, had not uttered a single word in her defense. "Mom's right," he had finally said, with that deep voice that made her heart race. "We need to maintain appropriate distances." Sofia bent down to pick up the shards, cutting her index finger in the process. A drop of blood fell onto the white marble, like a silent confession of pain. At that moment, she didn't know that Diego was watching her from the doorway, that he had come to apologize, that his mother's words had tormented him for hours. "Sofia," he murmured, approaching. She immediately stood up, wiping away a tear with the back of her hand. "Excuse me, Mr. Herrera. I'll clean this up right away." "You're bleeding." Diego came closer, taking her injured hand in his. The contact was electric, unexpected. "Let me see." For a moment, time stood still. Sofia felt the warmth of his hands, smelled his cedar and bergamot cologne, saw the genuine concern in his blue eyes. But reality hit her like a slap. "Don't worry, sir. I know my place." The words came out like daggers, loaded with pain and wounded dignity. Diego dropped her hand, as if it were fire. "Sofia, excuse me." She picked up the glass shards with trembling hands and left the study, leaving behind the echo of her pain and the fragrance of her cheap jasmine perfume. That night, in her small room on the rooftop of the mansion, Sofia cried until she had no tears left. From the window, she could see the city lights, but she felt more alone than ever. Her story had begun in the lower-income neighborhoods of San Diego, where she had grown up with her grandmother after her parents died, in a car accident. At 18, she had gotten a job as a domestic worker to pay for her night accounting classes, a dream she had had to abandon when her grandmother became ill. Now, 10 years later, she felt trapped in a limbo between what she was and what she could have been. Her green eyes shone with determination even in the darkness. Tomorrow would be another day, and she would still be Sofia Ramirez, strong, dignified, and determined not to let anyone make her feel less than she was worth. What she didn't know was that 3 floors below, Diego Herrera was also awake, looking out the window of his room, wondering how he had allowed his cowardice to hurt the only woman who had managed to touch his heart in years. Have you ever felt like your heart belongs to someone who seems to live in a different world than yours? Let us know in the comments what city you're reading from, and if this story is touching your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Sofia needs your support. 3 days had passed since the vase incident, and the tension in the Herrera mansion was palpable. Sofia had returned to being the invisible employee, performing her tasks with mechanical efficiency, avoiding any eye contact with Diego. However, he seemed to seek excuses to cross her path. "Sofia, could you help me with some documents in the study?" he asked her that morning, while she was organizing the books in the library. "Of course, Mr. Herrera." Her voice was polite but distant, as if she had built an invisible wall between them. In the study, Diego closed the door behind them. The atmosphere filled with an electric tension that neither of them could ignore. "Sophia, I need us to talk about what happened the other day." "There's nothing to talk about, sir. You were very clear about maintaining appropriate distances." Sophia kept her eyes fixed on the documents, but her hands trembled slightly. Diego approached until he was just a few steps away. "Oh, from her. You don't know anything about me, do you?" For the first time in days, Sophia looked up. Her green eyes met his blue ones, and for a moment the world stopped. "I know you're a good man who cares about his family," she murmured, "and I know I shouldn't be here talking to you like this." "My wife died 5 years ago," Diego said suddenly, his voice breaking. "Breast cancer. It was a long and painful battle. When she died, I swore I would never allow myself to feel anything for another woman." Sophia felt her heart clench. "Mr. Herrera, you shouldn't. My mother believes that protecting me means keeping me away from any woman who isn't from our social class. But she doesn't understand that what I feel for you—" Diego stopped, as if the words were too dangerous to pronounce. "What do you feel for me?" Sophia asked, barely above a whisper. "That when I see you, I feel my heart come alive again." The silence that followed was interrupted by footsteps in the hallway. Diego moved away immediately, and Sophia pretended to review the documents when the secretary entered. "Mr. Herrera, your mother is looking for you in the living room." When they were alone again, Diego approached Sophia once more. "There's something you need to know about my family, about why my mother is so protective." "It's not necessary, sir." "Yes, it is." Diego sighed deeply. 10 years ago, I had a relationship with a working-class woman, Elena. I was madly in love with her. We were going to get married." Sophia felt a pang of jealousy that she hadn't expected. "What happened?" "My mother. She paid some men to go to the factory where Elena worked. They told her that if she didn't leave me, they would fire her and make sure she never found work in San Diego. Elena disappeared one night. I never heard from her again." The revelation landed like a bomb between them. Sophia stepped back, feeling the floor move beneath her feet. "And what did you do?" "I didn't know the truth until years later. My mother confessed everything to me during my wife's funeral, as if it were some kind of justification for keeping me safe in my arranged marriage." Diego ran his hands through his hair. By then it was too late. Elena had left the city. She had married another man. "Why are you telling me this?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. "Because I can't allow it to happen again. I can't allow my cowardice or my mother's manipulations to make me lose another woman who could mean everything to me." Sophia remained silent, processing the information. Finally, she spoke with a firm voice. "Mr. Herrera, I appreciate your honesty, but you said it yourself. I am a domestic worker, and you are Diego Herrera. That difference isn't going to change just because we have a nice conversation." "Sophia?" "No, let me finish." Her green eyes shone with determination. "I also have a painful past. I lost my parents when I was 8 years old. I lived in poverty with my grandmother, who raised me as best she could. I had to drop out of school to work and take care of her until she died. I've cleaned houses, waited tables. I've done everything I've had to do to survive. And you know what I learned in all that time?" Diego watched her with absolute attention. "I learned that dignity isn't bought with money. I learned that respect is earned with actions, not with pretty words. And I learned that I don't need anyone to save me, because I am perfectly capable of saving myself." With those words, Sophia left the study, leaving Diego with the certainty that he had just met the most extraordinary woman in his life, and at the same time, with the fear that perhaps he had already lost her. That night, while dining alone in the main dining room, Diego made a decision that would change everything. He would not only fight for Sofia, but he would also confront his mother and the entire system that had allowed them to destroy his previous chance at happiness. In her rooftop room, Sofia also made a decision. She would no longer be the invisible employee. If Diego Herrera wanted to meet the real Sofia Ramirez, then he would meet her, with all her strength, with all her vulnerability, and with all her capacity for love. The kitchen of the Herrera mansion was the territory of Carmen Delgado, a 55-year-old woman with grey hair, always pulled back in a perfect bun, and hands that seemed to create magic with every dish. Carmen had worked for the family for 20 years, and over time she had become a confidant, advisor, and sometimes the only voice of reason in that house full of secrets. It was Thursday night, and Sofia went down to the kitchen to make herself a chamomile tea. She had been tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep, going over and over the conversation with Diego. She found him sitting at the kitchen counter, a steaming cup of coffee in his hands, and his gaze lost in the void. "Mr. Herrera," Sofia murmured, surprised. "I didn't know you were here." "Couldn't sleep." Diego looked up, and Sofia could see the dark circles under his blue eyes. "You either?" "No, sir." Sofia went to the stove, keeping her distance. "I'm going to make some tea and go up." "Sofia, wait." Diego stood up, gently blocking her path. "Please don't run away from me. I need us to talk. We already talked this morning." "No, we didn't talk. I talked," you responded with very wise words, "and then you left. But there are things I didn't tell you." Carmen appeared in the kitchen at that moment, in a robe and slippers, as if she had sensed the tension from her room. "Ay, Holy Virgin, what are you two doing here at this hour?" "Carmen, Diego began. "No, no, no." Carmen held up a hand, stopping him. "Look, I've seen a lot of things in this house. I've seen loves that blossom. I've seen hearts that break. And I've seen the amount of nonsense that happens when people don't speak from the heart." She went to the stove and put a pot of milk to heat. "Sofia, my dear, sit down. Diego, you too. We're going to have hot chocolate like civilized people, and you're going to tell each other the things you need to say." "Carmen, I don't think it's appropriate," Sofia started. "Appropriate?" Carmen laughed. "Honey, nothing that happens in this house is appropriate. Mrs. Herrera, who treats the employees like they're furniture, Diego, who spends his time sighing in corners like a lost soul, and you, who pretend you haven't noticed when it's more obvious than the sun in August." Diego and Sofia looked at each other, surprised by Carmen's frankness. "Sit down," Carmen repeated, now with a maternal but firm tone. "And Diego, you start." Diego took a deep breath. "Sofia, what I didn't tell you this morning is that I've been watching you for months. Not in an inappropriate way," he hurried to clarify, "but admiring you." "Admiring me?" Sofia frowned. "The way you fold the sheets, as if it were an art. The patience with which you clean every book in the library, reading the titles aloud. The way you care for the plants in the garden, talking to them as if they were your friends." Diego came a little closer. "And above all, the way you smile when you think no one is watching you." Carmen poured 3 mugs of hot chocolate and sat down with them. "Sofia, tell this man what you told me last week." "Carmen, no." "What did you say?" Diego asked with genuine curiosity. Sofia blushed, but Carmen spoke for her. "That the gentleman of the house had the saddest eyes she had ever seen, and that she wished someone would make him truly smile someday." The silence that followed was loaded with meaning. Diego extended his hand across the table, and after a moment of hesitation, Sofia placed hers on his. "Sofia," Diego murmured, "there's something else you need to know. About Elena, the woman I told you about this morning." "What about her?" "I never stopped looking for her. I hired private investigators for years. Finally found her 2 years ago." Diego gently squeezed Sofia's hand. "She is happily married, has 3 children, and lives in San Antonio. When I spoke with her, she thanked me for my mother's intervention. She said she had realized that she didn't love me enough to fight for our relationship. Then why are you telling me this? Sophia asked, confused. Because I want you to know that you are not competing with a ghost. Elena was my past, but you could be my future if you give me the chance. Carmen cleared her throat. And now, Sophia, it's your turn to be honest. Sophia looked Diego in the eyes. I haven't been completely honest with you either. Yes, I'm a domestic worker, but before working here, I was married. Diego felt his heart stop. Married? To a man named Robert. We got married when I was 22. He was a mechanic, hard-working, a good person, but... Sophia stopped, tears welling up in her eyes. But I didn't love him. I married him because I thought it was what I should do, because it gave me security, because everyone said he was a good catch. What happened? Diego asked softly. He realized it. After 3 years of marriage, he told me that he deserved to be with someone who truly loved him, and that I deserved to find that love that I never had with him. We divorced on good terms, but I was left with the guilt of having wasted 3 years of his life. Is that why you've never looked for a relationship again? Carmen asked. That's why. And because... Sophia looked directly at Diego. Because after working in this house for 3 years, I realized that I had been waiting without knowing it. Waiting to feel what Robert deserved for me to feel for him. And have you felt it? Diego asked, his heart beating so loudly that he was sure both women could hear it. Every day for the past 2 years, Sophia confessed. Every time you enter a room, every time you say good morning with that voice that touches my soul, every time I see you, playing with your sister's children when they come to visit, but I thought it was an impossible dream. Diego stood up and walked around the table until he reached her. Can I hug you? Sophia nodded, and when Diego's arms wrapped around her, she felt as if she had come home after a very long journey. The hug was tender, protective, full of years of contained longing. Well, Carmen said, smiling as she collected the mugs. It was about time these two lovebirds told each other the truth. Now, what are you going to do about Mrs. Herrera? Diego and Sophia separated, but he kept his hands on her shoulders. I'm going to talk to my mother tomorrow. I'm going to tell her that I've fallen in love with you, and that this time I won't allow her to interfere. What if she fires me? Sophia asked. Then we'll leave together, Diego replied without hesitation. I have money saved, investments outside the family business. We can start a new life if necessary. Carmen smiled, remembering when. She was young and had lived her own forbidden romance. But before all that, there's something you two need to do. What thing? They asked in unison. Have a real date. Get out of this house, get to know each other without the weight of social differences, without the fear of what people will say. Tomorrow is Saturday, Diego doesn't work, and I'll take care of distracting Mrs. Herrera. Diego looked at Sophia hopefully. Would you like to go out with me tomorrow? As Diego and Sophia, not as Mr. Herrera and the maid. I would love to, Sophia replied, with a smile that lit up the entire kitchen. As they climbed the stairs together towards their respective rooms, both knew they had crossed a point of no return. Tomorrow would be the beginning of something new, something worth any battle they had to face. Have you ever had a love that seemed impossible, but your heart knew was real? Tell us in the comments what city you're reading from, and if this story is moving you as much as it's moving us. Like and subscribe. Sophia and Diego need all our support for what's to come. Saturday dawned with a clear sky and a fresh breeze that seemed to carry promises of change. Sophia woke up early with a mix of nerves and excitement she hadn't felt in years. She was supposed to meet Diego at the Balboa Park in San Diego at 10 in the morning. Carmen had kept her word, inventing an excuse to take Mrs. Herrera to visit her sister in Coronado, ensuring the house would be empty so Sophia could leave without being questioned. Sophia put on her best dress, a sky-blue cotton one she had bought with her savings the previous year, but had never had the occasion to wear. She pulled her hair up in a high ponytail and applied a little lip gloss. When she looked in the mirror, she felt beautiful for the first time in a long time. Diego was waiting for her at the park entrance, dressed in jeans and a white cotton shirt, very different from the elegant suits he usually wore. When he saw her arrive, a genuine smile lit up his face. "You look beautiful," he said, approaching to greet her. "You look very good too," Sophia replied, feeling her cheeks flush. They began to walk along the park trails, initially in comfortable silence, enjoying the freedom of being together without the restrictions of the mansion. Diego bought 2 coconut ice cream cones from a street vendor, and they sat on a bench under the shade of a eucalyptus tree. "Tell me something about you that I don't know," Diego asked, turning to look at her completely. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. Your dreams, your fears, what makes you laugh, what makes you cry." Sophia was thoughtful for a moment. "When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher. I imagined I would have a small school in some town where the children would wait for me with smiling faces and drawings made with crayons. What happened to that dream?" "Reality," Sophia replied with a melancholic smile. "When my grandmother died, I was left alone with her medical debts. I needed to work, not study, but sometimes when I clean your house library, I stop to read the pedagogy books you have there, and I dream about what could have been." Diego felt a pang of sadness for everything she had had to sacrifice. "You know what? It's never too late to pick up a dream again." At 28, my father started his company at 45. My aunt graduated as a doctor at 50. Age is just a number, Sophia. They finished their ice creams and continued walking. They reached an area where there were families with children playing, and Sophia stopped to watch a little girl who had lost her ball. "Are you okay, little one?" Sophia approached, crouching down to the girl's level. "My ball fell in the pond," the girl said, tears in her eyes. Without thinking twice, Sophia took off her shoes and rolled up her dress. "Let's go rescue it." Diego watched her with admiration as she stepped into the shallow pond and retrieved the ball. The girl shouted with joy, and her parents came over to thank her. "Thank you very much, miss. You are very kind." "It was nothing," Sophia replied, drying her feet with her sweater. When they walked away, Diego took her hand. "This is why I fell in love with you. For getting wet in a pond. For your heart, for the natural way you help others without expecting anything in return." They reached a quieter area of the park where there was a small old chapel. Diego stopped in front of it. "Sophia, there's something I need to tell you about my marriage." Sophia felt her stomach clench. "What is it?" "My wife, Carmen, yes, she had the same name as our cook, was a good woman. She fulfilled her duties as a wife. She was elegant, educated, perfect on paper, but there was never any passion between us. It was a marriage arranged by our families, something common in our social circle." "Didn't you love her?" "I respected her. I took care of her during her illness. I cried when she died. But love, true love, the kind that keeps you up at night and makes you smile for no reason, I never had that with her." Diego came closer to Sophia. "Until now. Diego, I know it sounds crazy. I know we've only been talking honestly for a day, but I need you to know that what I feel for you is different from anything I've ever experienced before." Sophia felt her heart race. "I also feel something I've never felt before, but I'm scared." "Scared of what?" "Of not being enough for you. That one day you'll wake up and realize that I'm just a domestic worker who doesn't fit into your world." Diego took her face in his hands. "Sophia, listen to me carefully. You are not just anything. You are the most intelligent, strongest, most beautiful woman I have ever known. And my world, that world of appearances and absurd social rules, is worth nothing without you in it. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, but Sophia didn't pull away. Their lips met in a tender kiss, full of promises and hope. It was a kiss that spoke of years of loneliness, of postponed dreams, of love that had been waiting for the perfect moment to blossom. When they separated, Sophia had tears in her eyes. "What's going to happen to us?" "We're going to fight for this," Diego replied, with determination in his voice. "Tomorrow, I'm going to talk to my mother. I'm going to tell her that I've fallen in love with you, and that this time I won't allow her to destroy my chance at happiness." They spent the rest of the day together, having lunch at a small traditional diner, visiting the gas lamp quarter, laughing like two people who had just discovered they weren't alone in the world. When they returned to the mansion at sunset, both knew their lives had changed forever. That night, as they said goodbye in the backyard garden, Diego whispered in her ear, "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that this has been the happiest day of my life." "Mine too," Sophia replied, before going up to her room with a heart full of hope and lips that still tasted of their first real kiss. Sunday dawned grey and threatening, as if the sky foreshadowed the storm that would break in the Herrera mansion. Sophia woke up with a racing heart, knowing that Diego would talk to his mother that day. She had slept little, going over and over the possible scenarios of what could happen. Mrs. Victoria Herrera had returned from Coronado the night before in an excellent mood, suspecting nothing about her son's date. She was having breakfast in the main dining room when Diego approached, with a serious and determined look. "Mother, I need to talk to you about something very important." "Of course, son. What is it?" Victoria smiled, perhaps expecting news about some business deal or social engagement. "I've fallen in love." Victoria's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Excuse me?" "I've fallen in love with Sofia Ramirez." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria placed her fork on the plate with a metallic clink that echoed throughout the dining room. "Don't tell me you're serious." "I've never been more serious in my life." Victoria stood up from the table, her cheeks flushed with indignation. "Diego Herrera, have you gone completely mad? She's the domestic worker. She's the woman I'm in love with." "No, no, and no!" Victoria began to pace back and forth across the dining room. "I won't allow you to make the same mistake you made 10 years ago. We already had this conversation with that Elena." "Mother, I already know what you did to Elena." Victoria stopped dead in her tracks. "What do you know?" "Everything. I know you paid to have her threatened. I know you forced her to leave, and I know you lied to me for years, making me believe she had abandoned me. I did it for your own good," Victoria snapped, without a trace of remorse. "Those women are only after money, Diego. They just want to take advantage of you." "Sophia is not like that." "They're all the same," Victoria shouted. "Do you think it's a coincidence that she works here? Do you think it's a coincidence that she's crossed your path?" At that moment, Sophia appeared at the entrance of the dining room with a tray to collect the breakfast dishes. She had frozen upon hearing the conversation. "You," Victoria said, pointing a finger at her, "you planned all of this." "Mrs. Herrera, Silence!" Victoria approached her with a menacing step. "How long have you been seducing my son? Since when have you been planning this charade?" "Mother, enough!" Diego intervened, placing himself between the two women. "Don't defend her, Diego. Tell her to take off the mask. Tell us how much money she wants to disappear from our lives." Sophia felt as if she had been slapped. Her green eyes filled with tears, but her voice came out firm and clear. "Mrs. Herrera, with all due respect, you don't know me. You know nothing about me, about my values, about my character. I know everything I need to know. You're a domestic worker who's taking advantage of my son's kindness. No, ma'am. I am a woman who has worked honestly every day of her life, who has taken care of this house as if it were my own. and who has never, ever disrespected this family. Respect? Victoria laughed bitterly. You call seducing your employer's son respect? That's enough. Diego stepped completely between them. Mother, I won't allow you to insult Sophia. Then it's true, Victoria murmured, as if she had just understood the magnitude of the situation. You really have fallen in love with her. Yes, Mother, and she with me. Victoria looked at Sophia with disdain. Is that true? Are you interested in my son, or are you interested in his money? Sophia straightened her shoulders, raising her head with dignity. I am interested in your son, ma'am. His money has never mattered to me. If it were about money, I would have looked for a job in a house where I would be paid better, or I would have tried to get a position in the family business. Instead, I have worked here for 3 years, quietly, discreetly, never asking anyone for anything. Liar, Victoria murmured. I am not a liar, Sophia replied, her voice quiet but firm. I am a woman who has fallen in love with the most noble, intelligent, and honorable man she has ever known in her life, and if you think that makes me a gold digger, then you don't know your own son. Diego felt his heart swell with pride as he listened to Sophia defend herself with such elegance and dignity. Very pretty words, Victoria said coldly. But words are cheap. If you really love my son as you say you do, then prove it. How? Leave. Leave right now, without taking anything, without asking Diego for anything. If it's true love, he will follow you. And if it isn't, well, at least you will have shown some dignity. Mother, this is ridiculous, Diego protested. No, Sophia said, surprising them. Both. She's right. What? Diego looked at her in disbelief. Your mother is right. If what I feel for you is real, then I shouldn't need you to choose between your family and me. True love doesn't demand such painful sacrifices. Sophia turned to Victoria. Mrs. Herrera, I will leave, but not because you ask me to, but because I love your son too much to be the cause of a break in your family. Sophia. No, Diego murmured, taking her arm. Yes, Diego. It's the right thing to do. Sophia looked at him with eyes full of love. If our love is meant to be, we will find our way back to each other, but not like this, not at the cost of your relationship with your mother. Victoria watched the scene with a mixture of surprise and involuntary respect. She had not expected that reaction from Sophia. I'm going to gather my things, Sophia announced. I'll be out of the house in an hour. As she climbed the stairs to her room, Diego turned to his mother with a look she had never seen before. It was a look of deep disappointment, of pain, from a man who had just lost faith in the person he had loved most all his life. I hope you're happy, Mother. Diego, son, I did it for... No. Diego held up a hand, stopping her. I don't want to hear your justifications, not this time. He headed towards the stairs, but stopped before going up. You just lost the best daughter-in-law you could have had, and I just lost respect for the woman who gave me life. Victoria remained alone in the dining room, with a bitter taste in her mouth that had nothing to do with the coffee. For the first time in years, she wondered if she had done the right thing. Upstairs, in the rooftop room, Sophia packed her few belongings with trembling hands. Diego arrived running, panting from having climbed the stairs 3 at a time. Sophia, you can't leave like this. I have to, Diego. Then I'm leaving with you. Sophia stopped and looked at him. No, you can't do that. Why not? Because if you give up your family for me, one day you will blame me for it, and I couldn't live with that guilt. Diego approached and took her hands. Then what are we going to do? We're going to trust, Sophia replied, with tears in her eyes but with a firm voice. We're going to trust that if our love is real, we will find our way back to each other. They kissed once more, a farewell kiss that tasted of promises and hope, but also of pain and uncertainty. As Sophia left the Herrera mansion with her small suitcase, Diego watched her from his bedroom window. Carmen, who had witnessed the whole scene from the kitchen, went upstairs to join him. Did you do the right thing by letting her go? She asked him. I don't know, Carmen, but she was right. Love shouldn't be built on the destruction of a family. What now? Diego walked away from the window. Now I'm going to show my mother who Sofia Ramirez really is. And when I do, I'm going to go find her, and I'm going to ask her to be my wife. Carmen smiled. That sounds like a plan. But what neither of them knew was that Victoria Herrera had already begun her own investigation into Sofia, and what she would discover would change everything forever. 2 months had passed since Sofia left the Herrera mansion. She had found a job at a small elementary school in the Santa Terre neighborhood, first as a cleaning assistant, but soon the principal had noticed her natural ability with children and had offered her a position as a teacher's aide. She lived in a small, one-bedroom apartment she shared with Luz, a young teacher who had become her friend and confidant. At night, she studied online to obtain her teaching certification, a dream that had been reborn thanks to the encouragement Diego had given her to believe in herself. It was Friday afternoon, and Sofia was helping the first-grade children with their assignments when the principal approached. "Sofia, there's a lady who wants to talk to you. She says it's urgent." Sofia felt her stomach clench. Could it be Victoria Herrera? Had she come to humiliate her once again? She walked to the principal's office with hesitant steps. To her surprise, it wasn't Victoria who was waiting for her, but an elegant woman in her 50s with brown hair and kind eyes. "Sofia Ramirez?" "Yes, that's me. My name is Elena Morales. I believe we need to talk." The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. "How can I help you?" "I was Diego Herrera's girlfriend 10 years ago." Sofia felt as if she had been struck. "Elena, the same. Can we walk? There are things I need to tell you about the Herreras and about what's happening right now." They left the school and went to a small nearby coffee shop. Elena ordered 2 chamomile teas and sat down across from Sofia. "First, let me tell you that Diego contacted me 3 weeks ago. He told me everything about you, about what his mother did, about how you left." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Victoria Herrera contacted me too. She asked me to come to San Diego to talk to you." Sofia frowned. "I don't understand." Eleanor sighed deeply. "Sofia, Victoria hired a private investigator to find out everything about your life, and what she discovered left her, let's say, very surprised." "What did she discover?" "That your grandmother, Esperanza Ramirez, worked for 40 years as a seamstress for the Herrera family. That she was one of the most beloved and respected employees they ever had. That, when she became ill, Victoria personally paid for all her medical treatments." Sofia was speechless. Her grandmother had never told her who she worked for, only that she had a good job that allowed her to support them. "There's more," Elena continued. "Your grandmother talked a lot about you to Victoria. She told her you were intelligent, hard-working, that you wanted to be a teacher. Victoria had even thought about offering you a scholarship when you turned 18. What happened? Your grandmother died before she could formally introduce you, and you, needing urgent work, arrived at the mansion without knowing the connection. Victoria didn't recognize you because years had passed, and you had grown so much." Sofia put her hands to her head, trying to process the information. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Victoria feels terrible. She realized that she treated horribly the granddaughter of the woman she respected most in her life, and because there's something else you need to know." Elena took an envelope out of her bag. "Diego resigned from the family business last week. He told his mother that he was going to dedicate his life to finding a way to be worthy of you, to be the man that a woman like you could love with pride." "What is he doing?" "He opened a foundation for educational scholarships for underprivileged youth, especially for women who want to become teachers." Elena smiled. "He named it the Esperanza Foundation in honor of your grandmother." Tears began to roll down Sofia's cheeks. "It can't be true." "It's true. And Victoria wants to ask you for forgiveness. not only for how she treated you, but for having been blind to not see that you were exactly the woman your grandmother had raised you to be, noble, hard-working, full of dignity. Eleanor leaned forward. Sophia, Victoria asked me to bring you this. She opened the envelope and took out a handwritten letter. It was the shaky handwriting of an older woman. Dear Sophia, Eleanor read aloud, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you can find in your heart the same compassion that your grandmother Esperanza always showed towards others. I made a terrible mistake by judging you without knowing you, by treating you as if you were less than you are. Your grandmother would be proud of the woman you have become, and I would be honored to have you as a daughter. If you would give me a chance to truly know you, to show you the respect you deserve, perhaps we could build something beautiful between our families. With all my regret and hope, Victoria Herrera. Sophia cried silently for several minutes. Eleanor offered her her handkerchief and waited patiently. Where is Diego now? Sophia finally asked. At the foundation. He works day and night, interviewing scholarship candidates, establishing alliances with schools, trying to create something that will make you proud of him. I was already proud of him. That's what you need to tell him. Sophia stood up from the coffee shop with a determination she hadn't felt in months. Would you take me to him? Eleanor smiled. That's why I came. The Esperanza Foundation building was modest but welcoming, located downtown. When Sophia entered, she saw Diego in a conference room, surrounded by papers and talking on the phone with someone about scholarship budgets. He had lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, but in his blue eyes shone a passion she had never seen before. He was doing something that truly filled him, something that had purpose beyond money or social status. When he saw her, Diego dropped the phone. Sophia. Hello, Diego. He approached slowly, as if fearing she was a mirage. Why are you here? Elena told me everything, about the foundation, about my grandmother, about what you've been doing these 2 months. Sophia, Diego ran his hands through his hair, nervous. I wanted to be someone you could be proud of before I came looking for you again. Diego. Herrera, Sophia said, approaching until she stood in front of him. I was already proud of you from the first day I saw you treat Carmen with kindness in the kitchen. I was proud of you when you defended the employees from your mother, when she was in a bad mood. I was proud of you when you secretly donated to local charities, thinking no one noticed. How did you know that? Because I fell in love with the man you were, not the man you thought you had to be. Diego took her hands. I've missed you every minute of these 2 months. I've missed you too. Sophia, there's something I need to ask you. What? Diego knelt down in front of her, pulling a small velvet box out of his pocket. It's not an expensive ring. It doesn't have huge diamonds. I bought it with the first paycheck I earned working at the foundation. Sophia put her hands to her mouth, tears in her eyes. Sophia Ramirez, would you do me the honor of being my wife? Would you want to build a life with me, a life based on love, respect, and service to others? Yes, Sophia whispered. Yes, yes, yes. When Diego stood up to kiss her, they heard applause from the door. Elena was there, along with Victoria Herrera, Carmen, and several of the foundation's employees. Victoria approached with hesitant steps. Sophia, could you forgive a silly old woman who couldn't see the treasure she had right in front of her eyes? Sophia broke away from Diego and went to Victoria. Mrs. Herrera, we all make mistakes. The thing is to have the courage to make amends. Victoria hugged her, and both women cried, releasing months of pain and misunderstandings. You know what? Victoria said, wiping away her tears. Your grandmother would be so proud, not only of the woman you became, but of the man you turned my son into. 6 months later, Sophia and Diego were married in an intimate ceremony in the garden of the Herrera mansion. Sophia wore her grandmother's wedding dress, which Victoria had kept all those years. Without knowing why, Carmen was the maid of honor, Elena a bridesmaid, and Victoria cried throughout the ceremony, but this time with pure happiness. In his speech, Diego said, "Sophia taught me that true love is not about finding someone who fits into your world, but about building a new world where both can grow together." And Sophia replied, "Diego taught me that I deserve to be loved, not for what I do, but for who I am. And together, we will teach others that everyone deserves a second chance to find their dreams." The Esperanza Foundation grew to become one of the most important educational organizations in Southern California. Sophia finished her teaching degree and became director of educational programs. Diego and she had 2 children, Esperanza, in honor of Sophia's grandmother, and Robert, in honor of Sophia's ex-husband, who had attended the wedding with his new family and had blessed their union. Victoria became the most devoted mother-in-law, and Carmen remained the heart of the family, now expanded and full of love. And every night when Sophia fell asleep in Diego's arms, she remembered the words Carmen had once told her. "True love doesn't come to save you. It comes because you have already saved yourself." Word count, approximately 108,000 characters. English translation. 5 years later, full circle. The October sun filtered gently through the windows of the classroom at the Esperanza Ramirez School, the first educational institution built entirely by the Esperanza Foundation. Sofia Herrera, now the school principal, watched with a smile on her lips as the 5th grade children presented their science projects. Principal Sophia, the voice of Isabella, a 10-year-old girl with dark braids and bright eyes, brought her out of her thoughts. "Can you come see our experiment?" "Of course, my love." Sophia approached the group of children who had been working on a project about plant growth. Seeing the experiment, her heart filled with tenderness. They had planted seeds in different types of soil, simulating how people can flourish in different environments if they receive the right care. "See," Isabella explained enthusiastically, "even though this seed started in poorer soil, with love and care it grew just as beautiful as the others." Sophia felt tears of pride in her eyes. It was as if the girl had summed up her entire life story in that simple experiment. "It's beautiful, Isabella. What did this project teach you? And that no matter where you come from, if someone believes in you and you believe in yourself, you can get wherever you want." At that moment, Diego appeared in the classroom doorway with Esperanza in his arms. Their 3-year-old daughter had her father's blue eyes, but her mother's wavy brown hair. In her belly, barely visible under her loose dress, grew their second baby. "Sorry to interrupt, Principal Sophia," Diego said with that smile that still made her heart race after 5 years of marriage. "But someone here couldn't wait any longer to see Mom." "Mommy!" Esperanza reached out her little arms towards Sophia. The children in the class approached excitedly. They knew little Esperanza well, who frequently visited the school and had become the unofficial mascot of the place. "Mr. Diego," asked a boy named Carlos, "is it true that you and Principal Sophia met when she worked cleaning your house?" Diego and Sophia exchanged a knowing glance. That question had come up several times, and they always answered with honesty adapted to the age of the questioner. "It's true, Carlos," Sophia replied, taking her daughter in her arms. "I worked taking care of Mr. Diego's house, and he taught me that all jobs are dignified, and that all people deserve respect, no matter what they do for a living." "And did you fall in love like in fairy tales?" asked Isabella, her eyes shining. "They fell in love," Diego replied, "but not like in fairy tales. They had to overcome many difficulties, learn to respect each other, and above all, learn that true love is not about someone saving you, but about growing together to be better people." "Like the plants in the experiment?" asked another child. "Exactly like the plants," Sophia confirmed. "Sometimes you need to transplant your heart to more fertile soil to be able to flourish." After classes ended, the Herrera family headed to the family mansion for the weekly dinner that had become a tradition. The home had changed a lot in those 5 years. The walls were now filled with family photographs, Esperanza's drawings, and diplomas from the students sponsored by the foundation. Victoria, now 67, waited in the garden playing with Robert, 1.5 years old, Sofia and Diego's youngest child. The boy had inherited his mother's green eyes and his father's mischievous smile. "Grandma Victoria!" Esperanza shouted, running towards her grandmother with open arms. "My beautiful princess!" Victoria lifted her in a loving hug. "How was school today?" "We saw Isabella's plants. Mommy says we're like plants, that we need love to grow." Victoria looked at Sofia with eyes full of gratitude. In those 5 years, she had learned not only to love her daughter-in-law, but to respect her deeply. Sofia had transformed not only Diego, but the entire family. Carmen appeared from the kitchen, now 60, but with the same energy as always. "Dinner is ready, and I have a special surprise for my favorite grandchildren." "Carmen!" Esperanza ran towards the kitchen, followed by Robert, who crawled as fast as he could. During dinner, Victoria shared news she had been keeping for weeks. "Sofia, Diego, there's something I want to tell you." "What is it, Mom?" Diego asked, while helping Robert with his vegetable puree. "I've been talking to the mayor of San Diego. They want to name Sofia an illustrious citizen of the city for her work in education." Sofia almost choked on her water. "What? No, that's too much." "It's not too much," Victoria insisted. "In 5 years, the Esperanza Foundation has awarded scholarships to over 500 young people. The school you run has the best educational rating in all of Southern California. And the training program for single mothers that you implemented has helped over 200 women find decent jobs." Diego took his wife's hand. "You deserve it, love. You deserve it more than anyone." "But I didn't do anything special," Sofia protested. "I just did what any teacher would do." "Exactly," Victoria said with a smile. "That humility is what makes you special. Remember when I told you your grandmother would be proud of you? I understated it. Your grandmother would be absolutely beaming." After dinner, while the children played in the garden under the supervision of Carmen and Victoria, Diego and Sofia retired to the library to have a moment alone. "How do you feel about the recognition?" Diego asked, gently caressing her belly where their 3rd child was growing. "Overwhelmed," Sofia admitted. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life. 6 years ago I was cleaning this very library, dreaming of being a teacher, feeling invisible." "You were never invisible to me," Diego murmured, kissing her forehead. "From the first day I saw you, you illuminated every corner of this house." "You know what the most incredible thing about all this is?" Sofia asked, leaning back on the sofa next to him. "What?" "That in the end, my dream came true in a way I never imagined. I wanted to be a teacher in a small school in a town, and I ended up being the principal of a school that bears my grandmother's name, in the city where I was born, with the man I love and a family that fully accepts me." Diego hugged her tighter. "And you know what the most incredible thing for me is?" "What?" "That I thought I had already had my chance at happiness and had lost it. But you taught me that life always gives us second chances if we have the courage to take them." Achoo. That moment, Esperanza ran into the library. "Mummy, Daddy, Grandma Victoria showed me pictures of when you got married." "Did you like them, my love?" Sofia asked. "Yes, but Grandma told me something very nice." "What did she tell you?" "That when you came to this house you brought magic, that you turned a big empty house into a home full of love." Diego and Sofia looked at each other with tears in their eyes. Esperanza climbed onto the sofa between them. "Mummy, is it true you didn't live here before?" "It's true, my love. Before I lived in a very small house." "And did you like the small house better? Or this big house?" Sofia smiled, looking at her husband and then at her daughter. "You know what I learned, Esperanza? That it doesn't matter if your house is big or small. What matters is that it's full of love. And this house is full of love because it's full of family. And is the baby in your tummy also going to fill the house with love?" "Of course it is," Diego replied, kissing his daughter's head. "Every person who comes into this family brings more love." Later that night, after putting the children to bed, Diego and Sofia went out to the garden where they had once said goodbye, thinking they might never be together again. Now, under the same stars, they planned the future of their growing family. "What are you thinking about?" Diego asked, noticing the pensive expression on his wife's face. "About Elena," Sofia replied. "Did you know she wrote to me last week?" "Really? What did she say?" "That she's getting divorced. That after meeting us, she realized she had never experienced what we have. She says she prefers to be alone than to continue in a marriage without passion." Diego nodded understandingly. "I'm glad she found the courage to seek her own happiness." "She asked me for advice," Sofia continued. "I told her that the most important thing I've learned is that you can't look for love to fill a void within yourself. First, you have to learn to love yourself, to be complete on your own. Only then can you find someone who complements your happiness, not creates it." "Wise words from a very wise woman," Diego murmured, drawing her closer. "Do you remember what you told me the day we really met? In the kitchen when Carmen forced us to talk? I told you that when I saw you, I felt my heart come alive again. And I told you that I had been waiting without knowing it." Sofia put her hand on his. "Now I know I wasn't waiting for you to come save me. I was waiting for the moment when I was ready to save both of us." The next day, Saturday, the entire family gathered at the Esperanza Foundation for the monthly graduation event of the training programs. It was a special day because among the graduates was Luz, Sofia's former roommate, who had completed the accounting program and had just gotten a job at a major company. "Sofia," Luz said during her graduation speech, "when I met you 5 years ago, you were a woman who worked during the day and studied at night, who never complained despite the difficulties. You taught me that it doesn't matter how many times life knocks you down. What matters is how many times you get up and keep going." Among the audience, Victoria discreetly wiped her tears. She remembered the proud and prejudiced woman she had been, and she felt grateful for the transformation that Sofia had brought not only to her son, but to the entire family. Carmen, sitting next to Victoria, whispered, "Remember when you thought Sofia wasn't good enough for Diego?" "Aye, Carmen, don't remind me," Victoria replied. "Now I think Diego wasn't good enough for Sofia. Fortunately, she turned him into the man he deserved to be by her side." After the event, the family returned home to celebrate. Diego had prepared a surprise for Sofia. He had framed the first letter she had written to him after their official courtship began. It was a simple but beautiful letter where she expressed her fears and hopes about their relationship. "Why did you frame this?" Sofia asked, touched. "Because in this letter you wrote something I will never forget," Diego replied. "You wrote, 'I don't need you to be perfect, Diego. I just need you to be real. And if we are real with each other, we can build something beautiful together.'" "And did we build it?" Sofia asked, looking around, her children playing in the garden, Victoria teaching Esperanza how to plant flowers, Carmen preparing afternoon tea, Robert sleeping in his stroller under the shade of the eucalyptus tree. "We built more than I ever dreamed possible," Diego replied, kissing her softly. That night, while they put the children to bed, Esperanza asked a question that surprised them. "Mummy, why do people say you have a fairy tale love?" "Who says that, my love?" "The teachers at school. They say you have a fairy tale love because you were like Cinderella and Daddy was like the prince." Sofia sat on the bed next to her daughter. "You know what's different between our story and Cinderella?" "What?" that Cinderella needed the prince to save her. But in our story, Mommy and Daddy saved each other. And most importantly, they kept saving each other every day after that. How do you save each other every day? By being kind to each other, by telling each other the truth even when it's hard, by helping each other when you're sad or tired, and by remembering that we choose to love each other every day. And will you keep saving each other forever? Diego, who had been listening to the conversation from the doorway, approached and sat down on the other side of Esperanza. Forever and a day more, Princess. When they were finally alone, Diego and Sofia went to their room. On the nightstand, Sofia still kept the small Talavera vase she had broken the day everything changed in their lives. Diego had had it repaired with the Japanese technique of kintsugi, where the cracks are filled with gold, making the object more beautiful for having been broken. "Do you remember the day you broke this vase?" Diego asked, taking it in his hands. "I remember thinking my world had ended. And look now. The cracks turned into gold, and it's more beautiful than before." "Like us," Sophia murmured. "Our wounds turned into wisdom, our fears into courage, and our love grew stronger for everything we had to overcome." As they got ready for bed, Sophia reflected on the full circle her life had made. She had started in that house as an employee, had fled from pain and misunderstanding, had found her strength in adversity, and had returned as the owner not only of Diego's heart, but of the respect and love of the entire family. "Diego," she murmured as they snuggled in bed. If you could go back and change something about our story, would you?" Diego held her tighter. "Not a single thing, love. Not the pain, not the misunderstandings, not the tears. Everything was necessary to get to this moment. Not even the time. We were apart. Especially that time, because that was when we both learned that we could live without each other, but that we chose not to. And that free choice is what makes our love real." At dawn on Sunday, Sophia woke up to the first rays of sunlight filtering through the curtains. Diego was still asleep, with a protective hand on her belly where their third child was growing. Through the window, she could see Victoria in the garden, watering the flowers she had planted with Esperanza the day before. She got up quietly and went down to the kitchen, where she found Carmen preparing coffee. "Good morning, my dear." Carmen greeted her with a smile. "How is the future mother this morning?" "Fine, Carmen. Thoughtful. What are you thinking about so early?" "About everything that has happened. Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life, that it's too beautiful to be real." Carmen approached and hugged her maternally. "Ay, mija, you deserve every bit of happiness you have. You worked for it, you fought for it, and above all, you created it with your own hands. You know what I'm most excited about, Carmen?" "What?" "That our story isn't over. That every day we write new pages. That our children will create their own love stories, and that everything Diego and I have lived will teach them that true love exists, but you have to work for it. And that social differences don't matter when two hearts are meant to find each other," Carmen added. "Exactly. And that it's never ever too late to change, to ask for forgiveness, to start again." At that moment, Victoria entered the kitchen with dirt on her hands and a smile on her face. "Good morning, my daughters," she greeted them. "Do you know what day it is today?" "Sunday," Carmen replied. "It's the anniversary of the first time Sophia defended me against my own friends at the club," Victoria said, washing her hands. "Exactly 1 year ago, when Mrs. Mendoza made a derogatory comment about the maids who marry their bosses. And Sophia replied with such elegance and dignity that she left the entire table speechless." Sophia blushed. "I only told the truth. You said that love doesn't understand social classes, but that respect and dignity are universal, and that you hoped her children would find the kind of love that transforms and elevates people, instead of the kind of marriage that only maintains fortunes." Victoria smiled proudly. "Since that day, you are the most respected daughter-in-law In our entire social circle. I don't care what they think, Sophia said. I know, and that's why you're even more admirable, Victoria replied. You never changed to fit in. Instead, you changed all of us to be better people. The family breakfast was, as always, full of laughter, plans for the week, and the beautiful chaos of a large and loving family. Esperanza announced that she wanted to be a teacher like Mom. Robert babbled his first clear words, Mommy and Daddy, and Diego revealed that he had been secretly working on a book about the Esperanza Foundation. A book? Sophia asked, surprised. The story of the foundation, but also our story. How love can transform not only individual lives, but entire communities. And who's going to want to read that? All the people who need to believe that second chances exist, that true love is possible, and that it's never too late to change the course of their lives. Victoria raised her coffee cup. I propose a toast. With coffee? Esperanza shouted, raising her small glass of milk. To the Herrera family, Victoria began, who taught me that family is not defined by blood, but by love. To Sophia, who taught us that greatness comes from the heart, not from a last name. To Diego, who learned that true success is measured in transformed lives, not in bank figures. And to these beautiful grandchildren, who will grow up knowing that love conquers all. Cheers, everyone shouted in unison. While cleaning up after breakfast, Sophia found a note Esperanza had left on the table. With her 5-year-old handwriting, she had written, My mommy is the best teacher in the world because she teaches with her heart. With tears in her eyes, Sophia put the note in her diary, along with all the other small but precious memories she had collected over the years. That afternoon, while the family enjoyed a Sunday nap, Sophia sat in the garden under the eucalyptus tree where she had once cried with pain and now cried with gratitude. Her story had begun with a broken vase and a wounded heart, and had become a beautiful family, a fulfilled vocation, and a love that had overcome all trials. She looked towards the house where her happiness resided, listened to the laughter of her children, felt the kick of the baby growing in her womb, and knew with absolute certainty that she had found her home. Not just a place to live, but a place where she belonged completely. At sunset, when the golden light of the sun filtered through the leaves of the eucalyptus tree, Diego joined her in the garden. What are you thinking about, my love? That, in the end, it was all worth it. Every tear, every moment of doubt, every time I thought I wasn't enough. Everything brought us here. And are you happy to be here? Sophia looked at him with those green eyes that had captured his heart from the first day, now shining with the wisdom of a woman who had found her place in the world. More than happy, Diego. I'm complete. I'm home. I'm exactly where I should be, with whom I should be, being who I was always meant to be. And under the stars that had witnessed their story from the beginning, the Herrera family gathered once more, knowing that their love was the kind of love that transcends generations, that inspires, that heals, and that proves that fairy tales can come true when they are built on foundations of respect, sacrifice, and the daily choice to love unconditionally. In the distance, the bells of a church in La Jolla rang, marking the end of another perfect day in their imperfect but beautiful lives. And in Sophia's heart resonated a gratitude so deep that she knew it would accompany her for the rest of her days, the gratitude of a woman who had learned that she deserved to be loved and who had found someone who loved her exactly as she was. 10 years later, the eternal legacy. The auditorium at the University of Southern California in San Diego was completely full. On stage, a 38-year-old woman with brown hair pulled back in an elegant bun and green eyes that shone with accumulated wisdom, approached the microphone to give the keynote address at the International Congress of Education and Social Transformation. "Good morning," began Sophia Herrera, now a doctor of education from the same university where she had once only dreamed of studying. My name is Sofia Herrera, and 15 years ago, I cleaned floors in a mansion in La Jolla. A murmur of surprise and admiration swept through the auditorium. In the audience, in the front row, Diego watched her with the same love and pride he had felt from the first day, but multiplied by years of seeing her grow, shine, and transform lives. Today, I want to talk to you about something I have learned in these years. That true education is not just about filling minds with knowledge, but about igniting hearts with hope. In the upper rows, Victoria Herrera, now 72 but with an enviable vitality, discreetly wiped her tears while holding the hand of Carmen, 65, who had insisted on accompanying her to hear her girl speak in front of hundreds of educators from around the world. "Let me tell you the story of Isabella," Sophia continued, and the camera focused on her as an image appeared on the giant screen behind her. It was the same girl who 10 years before had done the plant experiment. Isabella is now 20 years old and has just graduated as a biomedical engineer. But 10 years ago, she was a girl from a low-income neighborhood who thought her only option in life was to work in a factory like her mother. The image changed to show Isabella at her graduation, radiant in her cap and gown, hugging Sophia. What changed? Not just access to education, although that was important. What changed was that someone told her what no one had told her before. You deserve to dream big, and I'm going to help you achieve it. In one of the middle rows, a young woman cried with emotion. It was Isabella, who had traveled from Los Angeles, where she worked developing prosthetics for underprivileged children, inspired by the story of overcoming adversity of her first teacher. The Esperanza Foundation, Sophia continued, does not only grant scholarships, we accompany. Each sponsored student has a mentor, emotional support, and above all, a family that believes in him or her unconditionally. The screen showed impressive statistics. 2,147 scholarships granted in 10 years. 89% of scholarship recipients graduated. From university, 67% working in areas that benefit their communities of origin. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Sophia said, moving away from the podium to get closer to the audience. The whole story is in Carlos, who is now a pediatrician in the public hospital of his hometown. It's in Maria Elena, who built the first community library in her neighborhood. It's in Robert, not my son, but another Robert, who became the first engineer in his family and now designs drinking water systems for rural communities. At that moment, Diego felt a small hand pulling on his jacket. It was Esperanza, now 13, tall for her age, and with the same determination in her eyes that she had inherited from her mother. "Dad," she whispered, "when can I start working at the foundation?" "When you finish school, my love," Diego replied quietly. "Can I study to be like Mom?" "You can study to be whoever you want to be. That's the most important lesson your mother teaches." On stage, Sophia continued, 15 years ago, I was a woman who thought her destiny was to serve silently in the shadows. My story changed, not because a Prince Charming rescued me, but because someone helped me see that I had the power to rescue myself." Her voice cracked slightly, and for a moment the doctor of education disappeared and reappeared the young domestic worker who had once felt invisible. "My husband Diego taught me that I deserve love, but more importantly, he taught me that I deserve respect. My mother-in-law Victoria taught me that people can change when they open their hearts to the possibility of being wrong. My mentor, Carmen, taught me that wisdom often comes disguised as common sense and hot meals shared in a kitchen." Victoria dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief. Carmen squeezed her hand tighter. "But the most important lesson was taught to me by my children," Sophia continued. "Esperanza, 13, asked me recently, 'Mommy, why are some people born with more opportunities than Others? I replied that I don't know, but that our job is to make sure that where you are born doesn't determine how far you can go. The camera found Esperanza in the audience, who waved shyly when she realized she was being filmed. Robert, 11, told me last week, "Mommy, I want to be like you when I grow up." I asked him what that meant to him, and he replied, "Someone who helps other people find their superpower." Robert, sitting next to his sister, sank into his seat, embarrassed by the attention, but smiling proudly. And Santiago, Sophia looked towards where her husband was holding their youngest son, 5, reminded me yesterday why I do what I do. We were visiting one of our community schools when he saw a child crying because he didn't have money to buy school supplies. Santiago approached him, gave him his own set of crayons, and said, "Don't cry. My mommy says all kids deserve to learn." That's the next generation we are forming. The auditorium burst into applause. Diego had to hold back tears as Santiago looked at him, confused by all the attention. "Now," Sophia said when the applause subsided, "I want to introduce you to someone special." The auditorium lights dimmed, and a video began to play on the screen. It was Elena Morales, now 55, speaking from her office in San Antonio. "Hello, Sophia. Hello to everyone listening to this talk," Elena began. "My name is Elena Morales, and I'm the president of the National Association of Women Entrepreneurs. 15. Years ago, my life changed completely when I met Sophia and Diego. The video continued showing images of Elena at different stages of her life: her divorce, her return to college, her first business, her growth as an entrepreneur. Sophia taught me that it's never too late to start over. At 45, I got divorced and went back to college. At 50, I opened my first company. Today, my company employs over 300 women, many of them single mothers or women who, like me, decided to change the course of their lives. The image changed to show a recent photo of Elena, Sophia, and Diego together at the inauguration of a new training center for women entrepreneurs. Sophia and Diego's story is not just a love story, Elena continued in the video. It's a story about the transformative power of believing in people, of giving second chances, and of understanding that true success is measured in the lives you touch, not in the money you accumulate. When the video ended, Sophia returned to the microphone with a more personal expression. "Elena couldn't be here today because she is inaugurating her 5th business training school for women, but her message is clear. Second chances can become new beginnings for many people." Sophia paused, looking directly at the audience. "Let me be completely honest with you. My story has not been perfect. Diego and I have had arguments, moments of doubt, difficult times. Raising 3 children while running a foundation and maintaining a solid relationship is not always easy." Murmurs of approval and understanding were heard in the auditorium. "Last year, when I was completing my doctorate, there were nights when I came home so exhausted that I could barely help my children with their homework. Diego worked very late trying to secure funding for our new projects. The children sometimes felt neglected." Sophia moved closer to the edge of the stage. One night, Esperanza asked me, "Mommy, why do you have to help so many children? You don't know when we need you too?" That question broke my heart because I realized that in my eagerness to change the world, I had been neglecting my smaller but most important world. Victoria leaned forward, remembering that difficult time when she had had to help more with the grandchildren to give Sophia the space she needed to study. "You know what we did? We called a family meeting. The 5 of us sat down at the kitchen table, that same table where Diego and I had our first honest conversation, and we talked about our dreams, our needs, our fears. Esperanza told us she wanted us to be more present. Robert confessed that sometimes he felt less important than the children at the foundation. Santiago, who was then 3 years old, simply said he wanted more hugs from Mommy. Tears streamed down the faces of several attendees who identified with the struggle of balancing professional vocation with family life. That night, we rethought everything. We established sacred hours for the family. We decided that Sundays would be completely dedicated to the five of us, without work, without foundation, without external commitments. And more importantly, we decided to include the children in our work when appropriate. The screen showed photos of the 3 Herrera children visiting schools, helping at foundation events, playing with children benefiting from the programs. The result? Our children not only understood our mission, but they became part of it. Esperanza now tutors elementary school children on Saturdays. Robert created a book exchange program for community libraries. And Santiago, well, Santiago is our hug ambassador in all the schools we visit. Warm laughter filled the auditorium. I tell you this because I want you to understand that sustainable social change is not built by sacrificing our families. It is built by including our families, teaching them that being part of something bigger than ourselves is a privilege, not a burden. Sophia, return to the center of the stage. 10 years ago, when I gave my first public talk, I was shaking so much I could barely hold the microphone. I thought I had nothing important to say. Today, after having seen hundreds of young people graduate who once thought they had no future, after having accompanied dozens of women in their reinvention processes, after having raised 3 children who understand that their privilege comes with responsibility, I know that we all have something important to offer the world. She moved closer to the edge of the stage again, making direct eye contact with different sections of the audience. You, educators, social workers, parents, students, have in your hands the power to transform lives. You don't need to found an international organization. You don't need to give keynote addresses. You don't need to be publicly recognized. Her voice became more intense, more personal. You just need to see the person in front of you, be it a student, a child, an employee, a neighbor, and consciously decide, I am going to help this person see their own worth. That's all. That's what changes the world. One conversation at a time, one hug at a time, one opportunity at a time. The silence in the auditorium was absolute. Even Santiago had stopped moving in his father's lap. My grandmother Esperanza, who died when I was 18, left me a letter that I found years later, Sophia continued, taking a yellowed piece of paper out of her pocket. It said, Mija, no matter how hard life gets, never forget that you have 2 hands, one to help yourself and another to help someone else. She paused to control the emotion in her voice. For many years, I only used one hand. I used it to work, to survive, to get ahead. But it wasn't until I learned to use the other hand, the one that extends to others, that my life found its true purpose. Sophia looked towards where her family was. Diego taught me to extend that second hand. My children taught me that by extending it, I receive much more than I give. And all of you, all the people whose lives we have had the privilege of touching through the Esperanza Foundation, have taught me that love multiplies when it is shared. She moved towards the end of her presentation. In 5 years, when Esperanza finishes high school, she will take my place as youth director of the foundation. Robert is already designing reading programs for children with dyslexia. Santiago says he wants to be a professional hugger, and I think that's exactly what the world needs. More laughter, but this time mixed with tears of emotion. The next generation is ready to take the lead. Our responsibility is to ensure they are prepared not only academically but emotionally, spiritually, to be global citizens who understand that their individual success only makes sense if it contributes to the collective well-being. Sophia took a deep breath. I finish with this. 15 years ago, I was an invisible woman who cleaned a beautiful house but felt empty inside. Today, I'm a visible woman, not because I appear at conferences or because I have academic titles, but because I finally understood that my worth is not defined by what I do for a living, but by how I choose to live what I do. The auditorium erupted in a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Sophia, with tears in her eyes, looked for her family in the audience. Diego blew her a kiss. Victoria and Carmen applauded like two proud grandmothers. The children waved excitedly. After the conference, as the family gathered in the auditorium lobby, a young education student approached Sophia shyly. "Dr. Herrera, excuse me for bothering you. Please, call me Sophia. What's your name?" "My name is Lupita. I'm from a very small town in Oaxaca. I'm here on a scholarship I received after hearing your story 2 years ago." Sophia smiled warmly. "And what do you want to do when you graduate?" "I want to go back to my town and open a community school like the ones you build, but I'm afraid I won't be enough." Sophia took the young woman's hands, vividly remembering the first time someone had taken hers with the same tenderness. "Lupita, let me tell you something I was once told, and that changed my life. You are exactly what your town needs. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be authentic, hard-working, and willing to learn every day. Do you really think I can achieve it?" "I not only think you can achieve it, I know you will. And when you have doubts, when you feel like you can't go on, remember that you have an extended family here who believes in you." Lupita left with tears in her eyes, but with a radiant smile. "How do you do it?" Diego asked when they were alone. "How do you know exactly what to say to change someone's perspective?" "Because I remember how I felt when I thought I wasn't enough," Sophia replied. "And I remember how it felt when you told me I was." That night, back home, the family gathered in the kitchen for their Sunday ritual, hot chocolate and reflections on the week. It was a tradition they had maintained for 10 years, adapting it as the children grew. "Mom," said Esperanza, "today I felt very proud to be your daughter." "And I felt very proud to be your mother," Sophia replied. "Can I ask you a question?" Esperanza continued. "Always. Do you think that someday I can do something as important as what you do?" Sophia looked at her eldest daughter, so much like her at that age, but with the confidence she had taken decades to develop. "Esperanza, you are already doing important things. Every time you help a classmate with math, every time you defend someone who is being bullied, every time you show kindness when no one is watching, you are changing the world." "But what if I want to do something big, like build schools?" "Then you will. But remember that big things are built with many small things. My work didn't start with the foundation. It started with an honest conversation in this kitchen, with the decision to be brave when I was afraid, with the choice to try to be better every day." Robert, who had been listening silently, spoke suddenly. "Mum, is it true that you used to be shy?" "Very shy," Sophia replied. "So shy that sometimes I couldn't even ask for help when I needed it." "And how did you stop being shy?" "I didn't stop being shy completely," Sophia admitted. "I still get nervous before big conferences. But I learned that being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means doing what's right even if you are afraid." Santiago, who had been playing with his blocks on the floor, approached and climbed onto his mother's lap. "Mommy, am I going to help the children when I grow up too?" "Do you want to help the children?" "Yes, because when children are sad, they need hugs. And I give good hugs. The best hugs," Sophia confirmed, hugging him tight. Diego watched his family with deep satisfaction. In 10 years, they had built something beautiful, not just an organization that transformed lives, but a family that understood that its purpose transcended their own needs. "You know what?" Diego said. "I think we have the luckiest family in the world." "Why, Daddy?" Robert asked. "Because we have something that money can't buy. We have a shared purpose. We have love that multiplies instead of divides. and we have the certainty that every day we live, we are making the world a little bit better. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Diego and Sofia went out to the garden where their love story had begun. The eucalyptus tree had grown, just like them. "Do you remember when you thought you would never be enough for me?" Diego asked. "Do you remember when you thought you would never be enough for me?" Sofia replied, laughing. "We were a couple of fools, weren't we?" "The best fools," Sofia said, snuggling into his arms. "But you know what I like most about our story?" "What?" "That it didn't end when we got married, that it didn't end when we had children, that it continues to be written every day, with every life we touch, with every dream we help to fulfill." "And how do you think our story's going to end?" "It's not going to end," Sofia replied with certainty. "It's going to continue through our children, through the students we have educated, through the families we have helped. It's going to continue every time someone remembers that they have the right to dream big." Under the stars of La Jolla, the same city that had witnessed their pain and their transformation, Diego and Sofia remained embraced, knowing that their love had transcended the personal to become something universal, a living proof that second chances exist, that true love can change not only individual lives but entire communities, and that it is never, ever too late to begin the story you really want to live. In the distance, the lights of the Esperanza Foundation shone in the night, reminding them that their work would continue long after their own stories had ended, through every transformed life, every fulfilled dream, every heart that had learned to believe in itself. And in that certainty, they found perfect peace. They had lived a life worth living. They had loved in a way that transformed, and they had left a legacy that would endure forever. Dear readers who have made it this far, you have witnessed a complete story of love, transformation, and legacy. From a domestic worker who felt invisible to an education doctor who transforms lives, from a man trapped in social expectations to a leader who understands that true success is measured in lives touched. This story teaches us that true love transcends social differences. Everyone deserves second chances. Real change begins with an honest conversation. Our legacy is built day by day, decision by decision. Happy endings require constant work, not just a magical moment. We would love to know what part of the story moved you the most, Monsieur. Do you know someone who has transformed their life like Sofia? What dream have you postponed that you could pick up after reading this story? What city are you reading from, and how did this story reach your heart? If this story inspired you to believe in true love, second chances, and the power of personal transformation, like so more people can find this hope. Subscribe for more stories that touch the soul. Share in the comments what story you would like to read next, because we all have a story of transformation waiting to be lived.